The air in the hallways of Ether Global Ventures was a specific blend of lemon polish, stale premium coffee, and the sharp, invisible scent of old money. It was the perfume of my current life. I was 20 years old, and officially, I was a facilities support specialist. That's corporate speak for an office boy, an OB, at a firm that handled everything from high-stakes tech mergers to international intellectual property law. Ether Global Ventures was the pinnacle of Manhattan prestige. My name is Raiden Miller. It's a name that has been both a source of quiet pride and outright shame. My mother always said the name Raiden meant nobleman. Back in her Indonesian heritage, my father's last name, Miller, was now synonymous with a multi-million-dollar corporate fraud scheme that had landed him in a federal correctional facility and scorched my family's reputation to ash years ago. "You can't wash that off, kid," a renowned culinary school dean had told me flatly when he denied my scholarship application. In this industry, trust is everything. Your passion for food is wasted if no one will hire the hands that make it. He was right. I lived for the controlled chaos of a busy kitchen, the sharp tang of lime, the savory depth of reduced stock. But the restaurant world saw the Miller name and slammed the door. So, I traded my chef whites for a janitor's uniform, my Japanese knives for a Swiffer, and my dreams for a predictable paycheck. I was paying rent in the real world, but my mind was still simmering in a 5-star kitchen. My escape was the small, late-night cooking sessions in my cramped apartment, where I cooked for my kind, elderly neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, who was perhaps the only person who genuinely appreciated my talent without judging my past. Today was the infamous Tuesday, the day I had to polish the entire executive floor, which meant entering the sanctum of Ms. Maya Sterling. Maya Sterling, the 23-year-old CEO of Ether Global. She was a legend whispered in hushed tones, a Wharton graduate who took the helm after her father's health scare. She was utterly flawless, razor-sharp wardrobe, a flawless, severe hairstyle, and the most arresting, perfectly cool blue eyes. Everyone called her the Ice Queen. I just saw her as the reason I kept my head down and my mouth shut. Her aura was one of total, untouchable command. I wheeled my battered cart down the hushed hallway. It was 8 a.m. I had exactly 5 minutes before the Ice Queen's 8:05 arrival. Get in, polish the massive, custom-made glass desk, and disappear. I slipped inside her office. It was spacious, minimalist, and designed to convey maximum power. It smelled faintly of expensive leather and that specific, clean metallic scent that only brand-new tech equipment emits. I uncapped the bottle of industrial-strength lemon furniture polish. Don't rush. Don't be clumsy. I was doing well. I had wiped the main surface, artfully avoided the sensitive legal documents stacked in neat piles, and was about to move to the side table when disaster decided to introduce itself. My worn aube uniform pants were too baggy, and my knee caught the handle of the cleaning cart just as I was reaching for a rag. The cart jerked violently. The bottle of lemon polish, which I had foolishly set directly on the desk, not realizing how slick the glass was, went flying. It didn't hit the wall. It didn't hit the floor. It found its target, the immaculate, steaming cup of artisanal black coffee that had been delivered moments before and sat, ominously, waiting for its owner. The Polish bottle hit the cup with a muffled thwack. A mixture of thick, cloudy yellow polish and hot black coffee exploded outward, decorating the desk like abstract art and cascading tragically down the side of her antique walnut file cabinet. The worst of it pooled directly onto a pristine, white Italian leather desk blotter that probably cost more than my monthly rent. No, 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 I groaned, dropping to my knees. My reflection in the glass desktop was pale and horrified. This wasn't just a mistake, this was a capital offense. This was a firing offense. 8:04 a.m. The door to the executive suite whispered open. I froze, caught in the act. I was on all fours, frantically trying to blot up the viscous, lemony, brown mess with a single, inadequate paper towel. Maya Sterling paused in the doorway. She was a vision of composure in a pearl gray suit, her face perfectly composed. Her winter eyes took in the scene, the pooling liquid, the ruined blotter, and me, the lowliest employee, groveling at her feet, covered in coffee. The air pressure in the room seemed to drop. Mr. Miller, her voice was the absolute definition of controlled ice. It appears your efforts to tidy up have been counterproductive. I jumped up, scraping my knee on the cart. "Ms. Sterling, I am so sorry. It was a terrible, clumsy accident. I'll clean it all. I'll pay for the blotter. I'll buy you a dozen new cups of coffee. Please, I just..." "Quiet," she commanded, and I instantly snapped my mouth shut. She circled the desk slowly, her expensive heels clicking on the polished floor. She didn't look angry, she looked disappointed, which was somehow worse. She stared at the stain. The smell, a truly vile mix of sour lemon and bitter coffee, must have been overwhelming. "That blotter," she said, her voice dangerously quiet, "was a gift from my father. Do you have any concept of its value?" My stomach dropped. "I'm genuinely sorry, ma'am. I know the Miller name has issues, but I am an honest worker. I'll take it out of my pay. Every cent." I had laid my worst card on the table, offering up my tarnished family name as collateral. She didn't react to the name at all. Instead, she inhaled deeply, clearly taking in the awful smell. Then, the mask slipped. Her perfect composure fractured. I saw a tiny, almost imperceptible tremor run through her shoulders. She quickly put one hand over her mouth, her eyes darting away from the mess to stare intensely at a framed photo on the wall. She was fighting something internal. Finally, she let out a small, sharp puff of air, a sound that was unmistakably suppressed laughter, quickly muffled. She kept her hand over her mouth, but her eyes, when she turned back to me, were glistening with an emotion I couldn't categorize, but it was certainly not rage. It was a bizarre, internal struggle to remain the Ice Queen while something ridiculous was unfolding. The aroma," she managed, her voice tight, straining for cold neutrality. "It's truly offensive. Like a cleaner got into a fight with a breakfast beverage and lost dramatically. It's a very distinct scent, Mr. Miller." I just stared. She was fighting a laugh over a ruined $2,000 leather blotter and a truly disgusting cup of coffee. The sheer absurdity of the situation struck me, and for the first time, I felt a strange connection to her. She wasn't a robot, she was a human being with a ridiculous sense of humor trapped behind a CEO facade. "I apologize for the distinct scent, Ms. Sterling," I said, my own voice now laced with a suppressed smile. She straightened, pushing all emotion back behind the ice wall. "Clean it up, now, and don't you dare mention this to anyone. Not the mess, and certainly not my analysis of the scent profile. I have a major client call in 30 minutes. She turned her back to me, walking to the window to gaze out over the city. I cleaned the desk meticulously, feeling her eyes on the back of my head, not with anger, but with unnerving, focused attention. When I finally wheeled my cart out, I glanced back. She was no longer watching the city. She was still standing there, watching the pristine, but now lemony-scented, desk, a faint, perplexed frown on her perfect face. She hadn't fired me. My name hadn't even registered. The mess had. The next afternoon, I was restocking the pantry when the bell above the espresso machine chimed. Maya Sterling walked in. She was carrying 2 cups of black coffee from a very exclusive, expensive shop downtown, the one the firm usually sent a PA to fetch. "Mr. Miller," she said, without looking at me. She placed one of the cups on the stainless steel counter and kept the other. "I have too many hands today. Could you dispose of this for me? I ordered it incorrectly." I knew she was lying. The cup she put down was exactly how she always took her coffee, black, no sugar, no room. The one she kept was identical. "Certainly, Ms. Sterling," I said, picking up the cup. As she turned to leave, she finally looked at me, a quick, almost panicked flash of her blue eyes. "And Miller," she said, her voice sharp. "Don't dawdle. Time is money." She walked out, the picture of detached professionalism. I looked at the coffee. It was still hot. It was perfect. And stuck under the sleeve, with the adhesive of a small sticker, was a tiny, folded slip of paper. I unfolded it. It read, in delicate, precise handwriting, "Compliments of the company. Drink it outside of company time. And stay away from the polish." My smile was genuine this time. The Ice Queen was trying to be kind, but her fear of appearing soft made her invent the most convoluted, ridiculous reasons to do it. Over the next few weeks, these bizarre, thin attempts at interaction became a strange new pattern. One day, I was polishing the brass kick plates, and she stopped me. "Miller, I need an opinion." Hypothetically, She stressed the word. If a potential client has a severe allergy to shellfish, would you, hypothetically, recommend a heavy dairy dessert or a light, fruit-based sorbet to cleanse the palate after a steak dinner? I straightened up, surprised. It was a cooking question. My expertise. Sorbet, ma'am. Dairy can sit heavy. A passion fruit or raspberry sorbet is high acid, clean, and refreshing. It resets the palate perfectly. She stared at me for a long moment, a faint, unreadable expression crossing her face. Interesting. Thank you. Carry on. And she swept away, leaving me buzzing with a forgotten passion. Another day, she stopped me in the elevator, holding a small, silver bracelet with a broken clasp. My grandmother's, she muttered, not meeting my eyes. The jeweler is impossible to get an appointment with. Do you know anyone who is handy? Discreetly, of course. Yes, Ms. Sterling. My neighbor's son. He's a whiz with small repairs. I can take it to him today. No problem. See that you do, she snapped, her cold persona back in place. I expect it back by tomorrow morning. Clean, repaired, and accounted for. This is strictly a business transaction, Miller. Nothing more. But as I stepped out on my floor, she called out, a little louder than necessary, and Miller. The advice on the sorbet was excellent. The client closed the deal. I knew what she meant. Thank you. My heart pounded. Every interaction was a tightrope walk. She would issue a cold, corporate command, only to immediately undercut it with a soft compliment or a thinly veiled favor. It was baffling and utterly mesmerizing. The CEO was an awkward mess when she tried to be nice, and the sheer effort she put into maintaining the Ice Queen facade while secretly revealing glimpses of a vulnerable, almost shy girl was becoming the most interesting puzzle of my tedious mop bucket life. The ice had cracked, and I was dangerously close to finding out what lay beneath. This was not a business transaction anymore. I was falling for the CEO of Ether Global Ventures, and I was just the obe whose family name was already stained. I knew this was going to end badly, but I couldn't stop reaching out for the warmth she was desperately trying to hide. The bizarre pattern established in the weeks following the Great Coffee Polish incident became the new normal. For everyone else at Ether Global Ventures, Maya Sterling remained the unapproachable Ice Queen. But for me, Raiden Miller, the facilities specialist, she was a study in controlled chaos, a woman who used her CEO title as armor, but whose attempts at human interaction were almost heartbreakingly clumsy. I fixed her grandmother's bracelet. I returned it to her desk the next morning, wrapped carefully in a clean linen handkerchief which I borrowed from my personal stash. An hour later, I was cleaning the glass partition in the lobby when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. Miller, the voice on the line was Maya's, sharp and devoid of warmth. The bracelet is repaired. The transaction is complete. You can consider the debt repaid. That's great, Ms. Sterling, I replied, suppressing a smile. I'm glad your grandmother's keepsake is back in working order. Yes. Now, about that transaction. There was a pregnant pause. Did your neighbor's son charge me? No, ma'am. I paid him. It was $10 for the weld. Another strained silence. Then, a quick, almost panicked exhale. $10. Absurd. I will transfer you 20. Keep the change. Now, Miller, about this transfer. I need your bank details. Immediately. Ms. Sterling, $10 is nothing. You don't need to. I do not accept charity, Mr. Miller. She cut me off, her voice suddenly regaining its full CEO frost. Send me the details. I will not have my personal accounts muddled by trivial, outstanding $10 obligations. This is a matter of administrative integrity. I hung up 5 minutes later, a deposit for $35 having already landed in my account. I realized I had not just fixed her bracelet, I had found the pressure point in her icy demeanor, her need for perfect, immediate transactional balance. She was incapable of simply saying thank you or accepting a kindness. Everything had to be a strict, slightly overcompensated payment. It was completely ridiculous, and I found it intensely endearing. Our interactions escalated from accidental meetings to carefully orchestrated coincidences. She'd forget her key card and have me let her into the executive library, only to ask me which of the dusty cookbooks on the top shelf contained the original recipe for pot au feu. She was testing me, gauging my knowledge. And I gave her the answer, citing the specific year and chef. My two worlds, the humble OB and the aspiring chef, were merging only when I was talking to her. One particularly grueling Friday, I was cleaning the staff gym and she walked in, already in expensive gear, her obsidian hair pulled back into a severe ponytail. I quickly retreated to the storage closet, but her voice stopped me. "Miller, wait." I turned. She was struggling with a pair of new boxing gloves. "I can't seem to secure these," she said, holding her hands out. She was trying to be stern, but she looked utterly helpless, like a child lost in oversized gear. I stepped forward. "They're new leather, ma'am. They need to be broken in. And you're doing the wrap wrong." Without thinking, I took her small, strong hands in mine. I started methodically wrapping the canvas around her wrist and knuckles, tightening it perfectly. The contact was electric, her skin was cool, and her gaze was locked on my hands. I smelled sweat and expensive lavender body wash, a mix far more human than her usual office scent. "Your hands," she murmured, her voice uncharacteristically soft. "They're very strong. Steady. They're trained to hold a knife, Ms. Sterling," I said quietly, focusing on the wrap, trying to ignore the heat rising in my neck. "They have to be precise." "A knife," she repeated, a hint of genuine interest in her eyes. "Not a mop." "No, ma'am, never a mop." When I was finished, I held her hands for a second longer than necessary. She didn't pull away. "Thank you, Miller," she said, her voice dropping to that near whisper I was starting to crave. "You are surprisingly useful." She walked toward the punching bag, leaving me standing there, my hands tingling. I was a facilities specialist who knew the original recipe for pot au feu and who had just intimately wrapped the hands of the CEO. This was insane. My growing closeness to Maya was noticed, not by the staff, who barely saw her, but by someone else entirely. Her name was Vanessa Chow. She was 22, an ambitious summer intern from a prestigious university, sharp as a tack, and stunning in an effortless, trendy way. Vanessa often lingered near the kitchen areas, ostensibly to get coffee, but always when I was there. "Raiden, you're a magician," she'd purr one afternoon, leaning against the counter as I was prepping the break room. "No one makes this machine work like you do." "It's just maintenance, Vanessa," I said, trying to stay professional. "Oh, it's more than that. You have a special touch." She paused, her eyes lingering on me. "You're wasted in that uniform, you know. I saw your notes on the supply cabinet, your handwriting is beautiful, almost artistic. You don't belong scrubbing floors." Vanessa was the complete opposite of Maya. Where Maya was cold and complex, Vanessa was warm, direct, and unnervingly available. She saw the talent I was hiding and didn't care about the Miller name. She only cared about the Raiden she saw now. The real conflict came when Vanessa saw me talking to Maya. I was fixing a jammed paper shredder, a task Maya had personally assigned me because, as she'd put it, "I trust you not to report the shredded documents to the press, Miller." Vanessa walked past the executive suite and saw me kneeling by Maya's open door. Maya was standing over me, pointing a slender finger at the machine. They looked, to an outsider, like CEO and subservient staff. The next day, Vanessa intercepted me by the elevator. "Raiden," she said, her voice low and intimate. "Ms. Sterling can be cruel. She's a Sterling. They don't see people like us, even when they're talking to us. She's just using you for errands she's too important to do." I felt a flash of irritation. "That's unfair, Vanessa. She's my boss. She's an ice sculpture, Raiden. You're a fire. Don't let her freeze you out. Come to that new tapas place with me tomorrow night. Let me show you what real warmth feels like." The temptation was real. Vanessa offered a life I could easily understand, flirting, normalcy, no crushing corporate secrets or impossible walls to climb. But I couldn't forget the way Maya's eyes crinkled slightly when she was fighting a smile, or the quiet compliment about my hands. "Thanks, Vanessa," I said gently. "But I have to work late tomorrow. Big cleanup on the 15th floor." I was lying. I was planning to spend the evening perfecting a new buff bourguignon recipe. The truth was, I only wanted to cook for one person now, even if I never actually got the chance. The danger of our connection finally became clear 2 weeks later. I was called into the executive dining room to wipe down the massive mahogany table after a high-profile dinner. As I was working, the door opened, and a group of 3 people walked in. Mr. Arthur Sterling, Maya's father and the former CEO, a man whose presence radiated billions of dollars in old-school power, was flanked by Mrs. Sterling and an older, imposing gentleman who looked like a senator. "You," Arthur Sterling said, his voice deep and judgmental, pointing a manicured finger at me. "You're the new cleaner, aren't you? What's your name?" "Raiden Miller, sir." "Facilities." His eyes narrowed. "Miller. I know that name. Are you related to Frank Miller?" My blood ran cold. The Miller name had finally registered. "He is my father, sir." A look of utter disdain crossed his face. "Frank Miller. The man who nearly bankrupted 3 of my clients in that stock scheme 10 years ago. Disgraceful." "Mr. Sterling, with respect, I'm not my father," I said, gripping my polishing cloth tighter. "I am just trying to earn an honest wage." "Trying to earn an honest wage here?" He scoffed. "And what are you doing in my daughter's circle? I hear you've been running errands for her. Fixing her trinkets." I realized then, Maya's lack of discretion in her attempts to be kind to me had given her staff, and worse, her family, something to talk about. "Ms. Sterling simply asked for assistance with a repair," I maintained, keeping my voice steady. "My daughter is under a great deal of pressure," Arthur Sterling continued, dismissing my explanation. "She is the CEO of Ether Global. She does not need the distraction of associating with someone like you. Your family's history is a liability, Miller. Stay in the service areas. Do your job, and keep your hands and your attention focused on your work. Do you understand?" It was a cold, direct threat. My cheeks burned with humiliation and rage. "Yes, sir. I understand." I swallowed my pride and retreated, feeling smaller than the dust bunnies under the furniture. As I walked away, I heard Mrs. Sterling speak, her voice venomous. "Honestly, Arthur, letting that sort of boy into the executive suite. Maya needs a partner with pedigree, not a janitor with a criminal family history." I spent the rest of the evening scrubbing the kitchen floor with a ferocity that bordered on violence. The Miller name was poison. The Sterling family saw me not as a person, not as a chef, but as a stain to be scrubbed off the pristine floors of their empire. I told myself I would stop the interactions. I would revert to being the invisible Obe. It was the only way to protect myself, and perhaps, to protect Maya from her family's judgment. The next morning, I was avoiding the executive floor, focusing instead on the lower-level restrooms, when I received a text message. It was from Maya's private number, the one she had used for the bank transfer. "Come to my office. Now." It wasn't a request. It was an order. I braced myself. She must have heard about her father's confrontation with me. I was about to be fired. I took the elevator up, my heart heavy with resignation. I knocked softly on her door and entered. Maya was standing rigidly behind her desk. She didn't look up, but she shoved a piece of paper across the desk, an official-looking memo. "Miller," she said, her voice hard, her eyes fixed on the memo. "I need you to run a very important, highly confidential errand. Immediately." I walked up and looked at the paper. It wasn't an errand list. It was a formal termination notice for a senior associate. Tucked underneath it, folded neatly, was a small, personalized recipe card with her initials, MS, embossed in silver. I picked up the recipe card. It was a recipe for a perfect, classic crème brûlée. Simple, elegant, and notoriously difficult to execute. And on the back, in her immaculate handwriting, were 3 words. "Don't quit." I looked up. She was finally looking at me, and though her expression was fiercely neutral, her blue eyes were intense and pleading. She hadn't fired me. She had just given me a complex cooking challenge and a secret message, all wrapped up in a corporate task. The Ice Queen was actively fighting her own family and her own image to keep me in her orbit. And for the first time, I felt a dangerous, reckless surge of hope. I was not going to quit. I was going to fight for the right to stand by her side, stain or no stain. The game was changing, and the stakes were higher than I ever imagined. Maya's instruction, "Don't quit," was less a simple request and more a clandestine declaration of war. It was her cold, awkward way of saying, "I'm fighting for this, too." The little recipe card became my new compass. The crème brûlée on the front was a symbol, perfectly crisp, hard sugar shell covering a soft, rich, delicate interior. That was Maya, and the shell was about to crack wide open. Arthur Sterling's threat had forced me into hypervigilance. I became the most invisible OB at Ether Global, perfecting my routine to avoid the executive floor when Maya's family was around. But Maya, sensing the new barrier, grew even more creatively clumsy in her attempts to connect. The coincidences intensified. She would, accidentally, leave her office door ajar when she knew I was passing, playing classical piano music I had once mentioned I loved. She would send emails to her assistant with me accidentally CC'd, detailing an imaginary, critical facilities issue that required a 5-minute meeting with Mr. Miller in the CEO's office. These brief meetings were our stolen moments. She would talk about the challenge of running Ether Global, the stress, the pressure from the board, the isolation. She spoke with a vulnerability she showed no one else, while I, the janitor, was the one listening, offering surprisingly useful, grounded advice. One rainy afternoon, I was called in because she had jammed her printer again. I found her sitting on the corner of her desk, not looking at the printer but looking at me. "My father is pushing me hard to attend a charity gala next month," she said, her voice strained. "He wants me to be seen with Theodore Prescott III. Prescott family money, Prescott pedigree. Everything I'm supposed to want." I glanced at the broken printer. "And you don't want to go with him? He's a corporate drone, Raiden. He talks about profit margins during dessert. I want to talk about acid levels in a wine pairing, or how much salt a steak can take before it's ruined." Her blue eyes, usually so cold, were troubled and searching. "Then don't go with him, Ms. Sterling," I said, my own boldness surprising me. "Tell your father you already have a date." She froze. "And who, precisely, would that date be, Miller? An imaginary facilities specialist." I finished fixing the printer, dusted my hands, and met her gaze. "Yes, ma'am. Me." The silence was deafening. The Ice Queen's composure utterly shattered. Her face went from shock to a complicated flush of crimson, then pure, unrestrained panic. You can't be serious," she stammered, crossing her arms tightly. "That's absurd. I'm the CEO. You're an employee. My father would have a stroke. My mother would disown me. The board would." "I know," I cut in gently. "But the fact that you're panicking over the idea of saying no to your family is exactly why you should do it. It's not about me. It's about you choosing your own life, Maya." She flinched at the use of her first name. She looked at me, really looked at me, at my worn uniform, my earnest face, and the honest, desperate hope in my eyes. "Get out, Miller," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Now, before I fire you for insubordination." It was the first time she had genuinely threatened me. But her eyes weren't angry, they were terrified. She was terrified of the choice. I simply nodded and left. My relationship with Vanessa, the ambitious intern, didn't help. She mistook my new distance from the executive floor as a sign that I had finally given up on the Ice Queen. Vanessa became relentless. She started coming to my apartment complex under the guise of dropping off work documents, bringing gourmet coffee and expensive takeout. She wasn't subtle about her attraction, often leaning close, her perfume a pleasant, easy distraction. "Raiden, you are wasting your brilliance," she said one evening in my tiny kitchen, watching me mince herbs with practiced ease. "My father knows people in the hospitality sector. If you stop with this dead-end job, I can get you an introduction. No one has to know about your family. You just have to let me help." She offered the life I wanted, the kitchen, the career, the escape from the Miller name, and the price was simply her. She was beautiful, smart, and offered a clear, uncomplicated path forward. "I appreciate the offer, Vanessa," I said, putting down the knife. "But I have to earn my way. No shortcuts." She stood up, frustrated, and walked closer. "It's not a shortcut, Raiden, it's a partnership. Unlike your CEO, I see the man behind the uniform. Don't you see? She just uses you to feel like she's rebelling. She will never choose you." Just as she reached out to touch my arm, my phone buzzed. It was an email from Maya, addressed to me and no one else. The subject line, Gala. The body of the email contained a single, massive attachment, a scanned copy of an invitation to the Ether Global Annual Charity Gala, to be held in 2 weeks. Vanessa glanced at the screen, her eyes narrowing. "What is that?" I opened the attachment. It was my own invitation. Across the top, in bold, formal calligraphy, was my name, Mr. Raiden Miller and guest. And directly beneath it, in a quick, sharp scribble that only I would recognize as Maya's handwriting, were 2 words, "Be ready." Vanessa read it over my shoulder. Her face fell, the easy warmth instantly gone. She's actually going to do it. She's going to use you as a statement piece. This is humiliation, Raiden. Not love. She's making a choice, Vanessa, I countered, looking from the screen to her. She's choosing the absurd. She's choosing the hard path. I gently took Vanessa's hand and moved her away from me. I need to take this chance, Vanessa. I'm sorry. Vanessa didn't say goodbye. She just gathered her things and left, her eyes flashing with a mix of rejection and sudden, sharp dislike. The threat was clear, the complication had just gotten real. The night of the gala arrived. I showed up at the venue in a borrowed, slightly too tight tux that had cost me 3 weeks of saving. I felt hopelessly out of place among the bespoke suits and glittering gowns. I waited nervously by the entrance, gripping a small, wrapped box. I knew I couldn't afford a diamond, so I had made her a gift that was truly me. She arrived fashionably late, a breathtaking vision in an emerald silk dress that made her blue eyes absolutely magnetic. Her obsidian hair was swept up, and she wore a magnificent diamond necklace. But what struck me was her expression. Sheer, untamed terror masked by the fiercest composure I had ever seen. She saw me, and her panic seemed to momentarily subside. She didn't offer her arm. She didn't smile. She just walked straight to me. "You came," she said, her voice barely a breath. "You told me not to quit," I replied, meeting her gaze. "I assume my payment for attending is a highly confidential memo on the state of the canapés." A flicker of her signature-suppressed amusement crossed her face. "They are adequate, but they lack the passionfruit sorbet you recommended. A terrible oversight." She took a deep breath. "Raiden, my entire family is here. The board is here. My father is already looking over here like he smells something burning." "Then let's give them something to smell," I said, gently taking her hand, an utterly defiant move. I presented her with the small box. "This is for you. For being brave." She opened the box, her elegant fingers trembling slightly. Inside, nestled on a bed of velvet, was a silver-type pin, a miniature, perfectly sculpted chef's knife. It was an homage to my true self, and a blatant signal of our impossible connection. She looked at the knife, then back at me. A single, perfect tear welled up in her eye, the first time I had seen her cry. She quickly blinked it away, determined not to let her shell crack in public. She clipped the pin to the emerald silk, directly over her heart. It was a choice more profound than wearing any sterling diamond. We walked into the ballroom, my hand securely around hers. The effect was instantaneous and electrifying. The whispers stopped. All eyes were on the Ice Queen and the man in the badly fitted tux. Arthur Sterling approached us immediately, his face purple with fury. "Maya, what in God's name is the meaning of this? You bring him, the janitor, the son of Frank Miller. This is an absolute disgrace. You are embarrassing this entire family." He reached out to pull her away, but Maya dug her heels in. "Father," her voice was loud, clear, and projected the full authority of the CEO. She was not the scared girl anymore. She was the Ice Queen, fighting on my side. "Mr. Miller is my guest. He is my date. And more importantly, he is the most honest, talented, and kind person I have met in this entire building." "Talented," Arthur scoffed, gesturing widely at my borrowed tux. "He scrubs toilets, Maya. Prescott is waiting for you." Maya looked him straight in the eye. "No, father. He cooks. He's a true artist, and he sees me as a person, not a piece of property. He is the only person here tonight who knows that my favorite dessert is a creme brulee that my mother hasn't made in 10 years. The detail, the vulnerability, and the blatant defiance hit her father like a physical blow. "This is not over," he hissed, retreating in a fury, followed by the silent, judgmental figure of Mrs. Sterling. Maya turned to me, her breath hitching. "We did it," she whispered. "We broke the ice." I leaned down, ignoring the hundreds of eyes on us. "Now, let's talk about those canapés." We spent the rest of the night side by side, ignoring the crowd. Maya was suddenly light, funny, and impossibly charming. She didn't let go of my hand once. The miniature knife glinted over her heart. 6 months later, I walked into the kitchen of the Raiden, a small, incredibly elegant French-American bistro in Greenwich Village. It wasn't a Michelin star, not yet. But it was mine. After the gala, Maya's choice had a massive ripple effect. Her father, furious, tried to push her out, but the board, impressed by her defiance and the media buzz it created, Maya spun the scandal as a brave young CEO choosing merit over money stood by her. She had won the fight for Ether Global, and more importantly, for herself. And she had fought for me. She helped me secure a small business loan, not as a sterling CEO, but as Maya, a woman who believed in my talent. The bell above the door chimed, and I looked up from plating a perfectly seared scallop. Maya walked in. She was wearing a simple, tailored, off-white dress, not a power suit. Her hair was down, loose around her shoulders. She looked softer, happier. She still had that sharp, intelligent air, but the Ice Queen was gone. "Chef," she said, leaning over the pass-through window, a warm, genuine smile on her face. "The restaurant critic from the New York Times just called me. He said your creme brulee is the best he's ever had. He wants a private interview. He knows the secret ingredient," I replied, my heart swelling with emotion. "Which is?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "The secret ingredient is not quitting," I said, walking out from the kitchen, wiping my hands on my apron. I took her hands, my steady, strong chef's hands, and looked into her beautiful, clear blue eyes. "Raiden," she said, the smile falling away, replaced by a fierce, open tenderness. "I still owe you a massive debt, an administrative integrity issue that can't be covered by a bank transfer." "How much, Ms. Sterling?" I asked, using the old formality, a private joke between us. "Everything," she whispered. I didn't need any more instruction. I reached into my apron pocket and pulled out a small, velvet box, a bigger, more expensive version of the one from the gala. I opened it. Inside, a simple, elegant platinum ring. "Maya Sterling," I said, my voice thick with all the emotion of the journey, the stains, the lies, the threats, the clumsy kindness, and the defiant love. "From the oaf who spilled coffee on your life to the chef who wants to cook for you forever, will you marry me?" Tears streamed down her face, uncontrolled, genuine, and glorious. She didn't try to hide them this time. She looked at the ring, then at me, then back to the tie pin still clipped on her dress, the miniature knife over her heart. "You are an absolute disaster, Miller," she said, her voice choked with emotion, but her smile was the sun. "But yes, absolutely yes." I slid the ring onto her finger, and then, right there in the empty, beautiful restaurant that was the proof of our crazy journey, I pulled the Ice Queen, my beloved Maya, close and kissed her. It was the most emotional, honest, and perfectly complete flavor I had ever tasted. The Miller stain was gone, replaced by the warmth of a fire she had finally allowed to melt the ice, leading us to a future that was, finally, truly and happily ours.